Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out the Eachine Viswhoop. Now, I never thought I'd see the words Eachine and DJI on the same spec sheet, but that's what we're looking at here. So this is a 2.5 inch 3-4S Cinewhoop with the Cadex Vista DJI HD unit installed, which makes it the cheapest bind and fly HD Cinewhoop that you can currently buy. However, I will caveat that by saying you will already need to have the DJI FPV goggles and either a D8 capable FR Sky transmitter or the DJI transmitter. So it's a bit like buying the cheapest car you can find and then dropping a brand new Ferrari engine into it. Now, I'm not trying to poke fun at Eachine here because I think they're probably responsible for a lot of people getting into the hobby, but they're also known for using cheap frames, motors and ESCs. So can they be trusted with a $150 Cadex Vista? Well, let's find out. Starting off with the frame, it actually comes with one battery strap fed through these two holes underneath, so you would be bottom mounting the battery. Now, the reason they have done this is because they say it can carry a Session 5 up top, but there's not enough room for a big enough battery and the Session 5, so they've gone for a bottom mount. The only problem is that the gap isn't wide enough for any of the recommended LiPos to fit underneath without the battery being loose, and you can't feed the provided strap through the entire frame because these JST connectors on the all-in-one board almost fit flush with the bottom of the frame, and I wouldn't recommend cutting the strap down or using a thinner strap either because the JST connectors are very brittle. So if you have a crash, then you could be bearing the load of the battery onto the connectors, which won't end pretty. And you aren't given any anti-slip mats in the package either, so if you did go for a smaller strap and fed it through the entire frame, you need something to stop the LiPo throwing in a crash and also to stop these silver screws digging into your battery. And seeing as I don't have a working Session 5 anyways, I decided to borrow a second diatone strap and top mount the LiPo, which works much better because the screws on the top don't protrude as much as the ones on the bottom, and I'm not going to be landing on the LiPo either. I also think that using a Session 5 on this guy is a bad idea anyways, because the motors get pretty warm without a Session 5, and I think the dynamic range of the DJI camera is better than a Session 5 these days. The only issue is that they have mounted the DJI camera in a 3D printed material, and usually this isn't a problem for DJI cameras. However, as I mentioned earlier, Eachine's budget motors can cause vibrations, and sadly that does seem to produce jello in sunny conditions. But it's only slight, so you'll have to let me know in the comments once you have seen the footage if you think the jello is acceptable. The frame's quite unusual as well in that the bottom plate is a 2mm thick carbon fibre unibody, but the arms stretch right out to the edge of the plastic protectors. I think they've done that to stop the protectors from shattering because they feel quite flimsy, but the longer arms act as a lever, causing them to bend easy as well. So even though they haven't broke from my flights, it's something to watch out for. The top plate is 1.5mm thick, and the only standoffs linking it to the bottom plate are at the back because, as I mentioned earlier, everything up front is a 3D printed part. The motors are an Eachine branded 1204 5000 kV, and it comes with the Gemfan 2540 tri-blades with a props out configuration. But next I want to jump onto batteries because their recommended LiPo range is 650 milliamps to 850 milliamps on a 3S or 550 milliamps to 850 milliamps on a 4S. And there's only one PID profile, which is a problem because there's a huge weight difference between those different LiPo sizes, which would need their own tune. Anyways, after some trial and error, the tune wasn't particularly great with any size of LiPo. However, the motors started to get warm with an 850 milliamp 4S, so I stuck with a 650 milliamp GMB 4S because it gave a 7-minute flight time. And even though the tune needs some work, there wasn't any yaw washout or strange flight characteristics, so it definitely has potential. I also used a rubber band around the LiPo to stop it sliding out of the straps in a crash. Moving on to the all-in-one ESC and flight controller, I think this is the same one that they used with the Eachine Novice 3. So its ESCs are BL Heli S, rated to 12 amps each, and the flight controller is an F4. It's also got a built-in SPI FrSky D16 or D8 receiver, and usually SPI receivers don't have a decent range, maybe 80 meters or so. But you can see here that the board has two very long antennas, and in D8 mode I was easily reaching 120 meters with the RSSI value staying in the low 60s, and that's without any low signal warnings from the radio, so that was something positive. I should say that it comes set up out of the box to bind to a DJI controller, but I figured that anybody buying a budget DJI Viswhoop probably didn't buy a DJI controller and are using a compatible FrSky controller. So it was a simple switch in Betaflight from Serial RX to SPI and then FrSky D for D8. I still don't recommend using D16 with an SPI receiver because you can get unwanted dropouts. It came flash with Betaflight version 4.1.1, and there were just a couple of important things to change. For example, air mode wasn't selected, and D-shot commands for a lost model alarm wasn't set up, which is important because there's no physical buzzer on this model. Interestingly, RPM filters were already set up out of the box, which explains the long flight times, and they've also set up a fairly decent Betaflight on-screen display, which unfortunately I won't be able to show you while I'm flying because for the moment there's no way to record that information. However, I can still embed the SRT subtitle file so you can see things like the voltage and video signal, etc. I added the RSSI icon so that I could keep an eye on the control range because I'm using a transmitter that is separate from the DJI controller. And remember, to see the Betaflight on-screen display options, you have to go into the goggles menu to enable it. Now, the Vista should come pre-registered. However, because Eachine is based in China, it's locked to 4 channels, so you might want to update it using the DJI FPV Assistant or the naco.txt method. I can't say I'm a fan of how they've mounted the Vista's antenna. This one came with a cable tie on the back wrapped around the coax and not the straw of the antenna, so it flops around. The model's dry weight is 120 grams, and with the 650 mAh 4S battery it weighs 201 grams, so it's well under 250 grams if that's important in your region. With it being a 2.5-inch prop, I'd say it's best suited for outdoors or in large indoor spaces. It's not one that I'd really want to be flying around the house with. Left in the box is a manual, although you will still need to be accustomed to Betaflight to get it in the air. You are also given the manual for the Vista. You get given a bag with a spare set of props, a prop remover, an Allen key, and a screwdriver, as well as a load of spare screws, nuts, and standoffs. You're also given what looks like a proper bracket to mount the antenna of the Vista. However, I can't see a way to attach it to the frame, and there's no mention of it anywhere in the instructions. So I'm going to show you a line of sight flight and then some DVR footage with the subtitle overlay. And if you like what you see, then I'll put a link in the video description as well as a pinned comment where to buy it. I'm kind of on the fence with this one, so I'll have to let you decide from looking at the footage, which was recorded 2 days before the lockdown in the UK. Although as my house backs onto the field that I fly from, technically I could carry on making videos. I actually did around 5 flights with 5 different products on this day, so I'll be releasing those periodically. Okay, let's go for a line of sight flight with this guy. This is with a 650 mAh GMB 4S LiPo. I think that's going to be the best LiPo to use with this guy when it comes to efficiency and also weight distribution, flight time, etc. And this is just to see if I can spot any problems like oscillations, and also to show you how loud the thing is and how much power it's got. So let's give it a punch. Wow, it's actually got quite a bit of power, and there wasn't too much of a wobble on the way down either. A little bit of a one. which will definitely manifest itself when it comes to FPV. Let's flick it into acro mode, see if it can do a roll. Yeah, no problems. It's not doing anything strange line of sight. That doesn't mean that it won't do an FPV though. Feels a little bit loose, but they have given a huge battery range for this guy, which I don't think you should do. Stick to 1 or 2 batteries and a couple of profiles, I would say. Yeah, just a little bit of a knock on the descent. So I think I should get a good flight time with this battery, but they say you can go bigger. I just think you wouldn't be able to do acro. Now I know these things not necessarily meant for acro, but I just can't help myself. I just get bored flying in a straight line. But it's behaving line of sight anyways, and it should be really interesting to see how the DJI system works with this, what is usually a budget setup. Actually gonna stick it back into angle mode to see if there's any drift. No, there's no drift, so let's bring it in for a landing and do some FPV.
Never reminded, never taking whatever you told me. I know what I could be, making emotion paintable and so tell me, is this what you made me?
I see it now, I see it now. Real love, now I break through to show to you that I'm more good than I am bad. I work it out, I work it out. And I'll be somewhere that you need me, and I'll be holding my breath, waiting for you to show. Show to you that I'm more good than I am bad. I work it out.